Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam, sallallahu sallam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to welcome to our program here at Sharjah Media Corporation, Getting Closer to Allah, and we hope by Allah's permission and grace that you are inclined towards His obedience if you're in disbelief, and if you're a believer, that also more so that Allah has blessed you to be among those who are steadfast in obeying Him and striving with all that you have to please Him and in His service. And we ask Allah to make us among those who He uses to serve His religion until the Day of Judgment. Today I want to talk a little bit about the love of Allah, and at the other side, what Allah promises the people who love Allah. So let's see what the Prophet ﷺ says in relationship to this. And Abu Hurairah reported the Prophet ﷺ said, when Allah loves a slave, He calls Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, and says, I love so-and-so, so love him. And then Jibreel loves him. Then Jibreel announces in the heavens, saying, Allah loves so-and-so, so love him. Then the inhabitants of the heavens, the angels, also love him. And then the people on earth love him. And when Allah hates a slave, He calls Jibreel alayhi salam and says, I hate so-and-so, so hate him. Then Jibreel alayhi salam also hates him. Jibreel alayhi salam, then announces amongst the inhabitants of heaven, verily Allah hates so-and-so, so also hate him. Thus they also start to hate him. Then he becomes the object of hatred on the earth also. It's collected by Muslim. So we should be very careful. And of course, all of us would be among those who would desire that Allah will command the angels to say that He loves us. But surely we do not want to be among those who Allah has commanded the angels to hate. So this is part and parcel to do what? To correct our behavior, to correct our lifestyles, to correct our mindset, to make correction on our hearts and our desires, to strive to do so. There's no perfect people, but to strive for this, to learn what are its requirements and implement them in our life, to live a disciplined life. The orientation of modern society is the opposite. The programming is to be an undisciplined person. Unfortunately, in too much of the world today, not everywhere, because we find that some places, some societies are extremely disciplined. But at the other side of that equation, we find that many of those people have just become robots. They become like robots for worldly pursuits. So they still haven't really balanced out this equation. The balance between working and striving in the world and obeying the commandments of Allah and seeing our place in the hereafter. The coordination of this equation in many people's lives is an illusion. It's not a reality. They have become obsessed with this material existence. And as a result of that, it doesn't mean that they're undisciplined. They are, very much so, in relationship to pursuing worldly things. And they are limited in that only. So they're like programmable robots. But their program of understanding their relationship with Allah and connectedness with their hereafter, this is, we can say, miscommunicating. The circuitry has been disconnected. So part of our aim is to connect the person who is disconnected. And our aim is to inform mankind about his relationship with his Lord, and that if he doesn't make effort on this relationship, that he will stay disconnected. And if he stays disconnected, the danger is the reality of his eternal life will have been lost. And there are many people in their societies, their cultural and their religious beliefs, there is the existence of eternity in many forms and many fashions. So there are people who believe in an eternity. But we're saying let's correct that belief so it becomes real for you, that you understand it's dynamic and that you pursue it in a real sense, that your understanding of it is that what I'm doing now has a direct impact on that, and that this aspect of my life is only part of a cycle. And that cycle is an eternal cycle. And this one is the temporary aspect of that. But it is essential to get it correct now, so that the eternal cycle is most beneficial for me. So this is what we're doing. When we say learn Islam, learn about the Quran, practice it, implement it, teach it to others, this is for the sake of our own individual souls. If we lose this, we've lost everything. All that we have in this world, we have lost it. It's been of little or no benefit for us. It's only been the benefit for this temporary existence, which we will have no recognition of when we go to the grave. Forget about the other phases. Just the next phase. When we go to the grave, the only thing that will be with us is our deeds, good and bad. We'll be dependent on the mercy of Allah solely, regardless of how many good deeds that we have done. We're dependent on what? The mercy of Allah and the grave. And that this mercy, we pray and we ask Allah to grant us this mercy so the grave will be a garden of paradise for us. If not, then it will be like a pit of hellfire. Sure, people says, well, you know, I've been in the grave, I've dug graves, I put people in the grave, I dug up people from the grave. I didn't see anything like hellfire in the grave. When I dug up graves, I just saw some bones and some rags and some bugs, and that was it. Well, in this sense, seeing is not believing. It is believing without seeing. And then in some instances, Allah allows people to see things. He sees some signs of this for those who wish to believe. But this is the unseen system that the next aspect of our life, it does exist. And it will be eternal. And we cannot see it now, but we must prepare for it without seeing. We must believe without seeing. And that is part and parcel of our faith. We're working for the benefit of our hereafter without seeing it. And so many people have worked for their futures, not visualizing what would happen in the future, but just thinking, well, I'm going to do this for my future or the future of my children. And what comes, comes. But this I will set aside, I will do this. And after some time, it manifests themselves in a way which they could never imagine. So what about the unseen promise of Allah? What will that be? What will that reality be? And Abu Hurairah, renowned, reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah, the Exalted, has said, I will declare war against him who treats with hostility a pious worshipper of mine. He who treats with hostility a pious worshipper of mine. And the most beloved thing with which my slave comes nearer to me is what I have enjoined upon him. And my slave keeps on coming closer to me through performing voluntary prayers or doing extra deeds beside what is obligatory, until I love him. So much so that I become his hearing with which he hears, and his sight with which he sees, and his hand with which he strikes, and his leg with which he walks. And if he asks me something, I will surely give him. And if he seeks my protection, my refuge, I will surely protect him. It's collected by al-Bukhari. So, if we are to put this in perspective, and we are to look at our individual relationship with Allah, where do I stand in relationship to this Hadith Qudsi, where Allah says this? What is my relationship with Allah? Am I obeying Allah to this extent that I can see in my life the protection, the assistance of Allah? Or am I disobedient to Allah? So as a result of that, I'm not connected. I am disconnected. There are many people who are complaining about their lives. Yet and still, from the material perspective, they have all of the material things that most people would desire. But they're still, or they continue to feel disconnected. They don't know what they're disconnected from, what it is that they're disconnected from. But they feel that there's something missing in my life. So what do? They pursue satisfaction through materialism, which will never give them satisfaction. It's only temporary. And some of them become so deluded that they go completely astray. They become subhuman, for lack of a better description. And I think most people know what I'm talking about. And as a result of that, they become slaves of their desires, which continue to be inflated by Satan and could never be satisfied in this world until they lose consciousness of who they really are. And they lose the connection with their Lord. And they become worse than animals. Yes, because we see men doing things today openly, publicly, globally, which animals do not do. So people say, well, brother, you're being rather harsh. Why are you so harsh? No. It is very interesting that people, when we speak about truth, which is evident, which is in front of our eyes on a daily basis, the person says, well, you know, this is kind of harsh judgment that you're making. So, oh, am I? Well, let's look at the reality of this subject matter. Let's put it in perspective. Allah commands us to follow this path in this manner. It is very precise. A path other than this, it is documented to be a path of the people of hellfire. We are not the judge. I cannot judge you and say that what you're doing, you're going to go to hell. No. Allah is the judge. But I can say that the actions that a person is committing are the actions of the people of hellfire. People says, well, how can you do that? Because we have narrations from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ where Allah allowed him to see people in the hellfire and their punishments in the hellfire and why they were being punished, meaning what acts they committed in this world that led them to being punished in the hellfire. And Allah warns us in the Quran about obeying Him and the proper methodology to follow and the result of obeying and the result of being disobedient. So a person who says, well, I don't want to accept this because I can't see it myself. This is a very foolish person. This is not an excuse to commit crime, is it? It's not an excuse. Well, I'm committing a crime and nobody caught me committing this crime, so I'm going to continue doing it. Does that make sense? And we find people today who've been committing crimes for years. And then all of a sudden, Allah exposes them. And we know what happens then. So similarly, it may be a personal crime. It may not be crimes where we're committing crimes against people, but just disobedience to Allah. Flagrant disobedience. This is enough to send us to hellfire. He says, well, what is that, man? Lying, cheating, stealing, the use of drugs, alcohol, promoting it, pornography, homosexuality. People say, oh, don't say that. Promiscuousness. We talk about sexual promiscuousness. All of these things evident. Murder. All of these things we're seeing running rampant in today's world. People act as though cursing. Some people, their cursing is so vulgar, vile, that you can't stand to be in their presence. These things in many places in the world are common. Any one of them send you to the hellfire. So people say, brother, you're trying to send everybody to hellfire. No. Our dear beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came as a mercy to mankind, to guide the people away from the fire. Allah revealed the Quran to mankind until the day of judgment as a guide to the real success, the ultimate success, a protection, a means of mercy and healing. It's the opposite. But we have to choose. So make the choice today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah Media Corporation on Getting Closer to Allah, and we hope by Allah's mercy and grace that you've gotten some benefit from this program and that you continue to join us and that Allah continue to bless you and open your hearts to the truth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.